Why do trees have birthdays, and why are we celebrating the birthday of a tree? All right, we are getting started right now. And again, today is the 15th of Shvat. So I have my fruit ready. The grapes, the pomegranate, and the dates, and the figs. Sorry, there's no olives on this tray, though I have those also, but I didn't want to somehow have olives with my kiwi and apple and peach and cherries and all these pretty fruits. I hope everyone has a fruit by them. We're going to talk about the 15th of Shvat. We're going to explain the background behind it, which, to be honest, I would guess like a good 85% of all religious Orthodox Jews don't know. Meaning they know, again, New Year of the Tree, exactly the significance. You will be very educated in a few minutes. And then after we go through that, we will speak about the spirituality or the relevance to our own lives. But first, if everyone can pick up a fruit. I hope everyone has a fruit. Proudly display your fruit. I see Rachel. I see Rivka. Yeah. Miriam. I see she's fishing out her fruit. Oh, they're beautiful. Those are beautiful. All right, Ellen. Yeah. Menucha. All right, let's take a fruit and make a blessing. Ideally, I said the best fruits are fruits from the species of Israel. That did not mean fruit specifically grown this year in Israel. Grapes from Greece, grapes from California are just as good. It doesn't have to be grown in Israel. And actually, honestly, sometimes we avoid fruits grown in Israel during the sabbatical year for various reasons. But these are the fruits of Israel. The grapes, any color. Miriam's looks prettier than mine. The pomegranate, the dates, the figs, and the olives. These are the special fruits, special in connection to Israel. And therefore, on the 15th of Shvat, those are the best fruits to eat. Some people think you're supposed to eat specifically a new fruit. That is not true. If this fruit happens to be a new fruit for you, enjoy. But does not have anything to do with a new fruit. It's enjoying fruits. Let's say you only have a delicious apple in your house. That's fine. Eat the apple. I have here also peach and apple and cherries and kiwi. Indulge in fruit. So before we do anything else, we want to make sure we do what you're supposed to do today, which is eat a fruit. If it's a new fruit, is for anyone this a new fruit? No, because if it was a new fruit, we make a special blessing for the new fruit. If it's not, we're just going to make the blessing together for the fruit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri ha'etz. And enjoy. Enjoy. You're supposed to enjoy the fruits. They're supposed to be sweet and delicious and give us a lot of pleasure. God wants us to really have the pleasure in these delicious fruits that He gave to this world. It says the fruits of this world and the sweetness of the fruits are like God's kindness. They are the embodiment of God's kindness. So enjoy, and if you eat a few more than you normally would, that's great. And if you eat a lot more than you normally would, that's even better. Enjoy the fruits. This is how you are literally, simply serving God today. Isn't that so nice of God? He says, serve me by eating delicious fruits and being happy in their sweetness. That is really, really kind. And again, you don't need to know any theology. You don't need to know any reason why. You're just eating the fruit and serving God. Okay? Before we get started explaining, let's remember to make the blessing we make when we study God's Torah, which is something else we enjoy and is very sweet. So we're going to make a blessing on that and then say the verse of Shema, because once you make a blessing, just like you made the blessing and you eat the fruit, we make the blessing and we eat. We have that Torah, that verse. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'nasan lanu es Torah so, Baruch, Atah, Adonai, Nosein, HaTorah. Shema, Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad. So we made a blessing on Torah, like we make a blessing on the fruit. And as we make the blessing and eat the sweet fruit, we make the blessing, we say a verse of Torah. And now we're going to continue to learn Torah tonight. And we're going to understand, what is this special date? What is it? And then why are we celebrating it? And as I said, by the end of this class, or even a few minutes into this class, you will probably know more than most Jews out there. Because most people don't really know, but they're going to celebrate. And honestly, as long as you're celebrating, that's great too. So the 15th of Shvat is the new year for trees. Why are trees celebrating their new year so much later than we do? Our new year was the 1st of Tishrei. That was about 4 months ago. Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Teves. It was 4.5 months ago. So why is the trees, why did they have a new year 4.5 months after ours? And other crops have the same new year we do, like grains. We don't eat wheat and barley to celebrate the 15th of Shvat because grains, this is not their new year. Their new year is just like ours. Legumes, their new year is just like ours. So why are trees specifically having this new year 4.5 months late? So basically, it has to do with the rainy season in Israel. The rainy season in Israel, unlike in America, where it could rain any day of the year or not, in Israel, rain is very seasonal. And it begins with the holiday of Sukkot, which was exactly 4 months ago today. It takes 4 months of rain to saturate the soil, to nurture the trees, and to get them to produce fruit. So this day marks the season when the earliest blooming trees in the land of Israel emerge from their winter sleep and begin a new fruit-bearing cycle. So what are they? Why do we care? Like, I mean, in America, you don't speak about really the new year of the fruits or of the wheat or of the barley or of the legumes. Why do we need to know this? Well, it was very important to know it actually for the farmers of Israel. Because originally, in biblical times and times of the temple, farmers in Israel, there were a lot of laws. There were the tithes. They gave a certain percentage to the priest. Then they would give 10% to the Levite. And then some years they gave the next 10% to the poor. And some years, the next 10%, actually the farmer and his family went to Jerusalem and would eat this food, or would sell this food and take the money and then buy food in Jerusalem and eat from this type. To give you more specifics for people that like more specifics, if you don't like more specifics, it's fine. You don't need to know these details. But there's a 7-year agricultural cycle, culminating, of course, as you all probably know, with the sabbatical year, the Shemitah year, which we just had in Israel last year was a sabbatical year. So when the Holy Temple stood in Jerusalem, on years 1, 2, 4, and 5, the farmers took that second tithe. The first tithe went to the Levites. Again, the first gift goes to the priests. Then a tithe of the remaining goes to the Levites. And then the next tithe from the remaining, on years 1, 2, 4, and 5, the farmers would bring to Jerusalem, and they and their families and their servants would eat it in Jerusalem. You could only use this for food, not for your Airbnbs, not for your transportation costs. You either ate literally the foods, or if it was too much to bring and to schlep, you could sell it, but all that money had to be used to buy food and eat it in Jerusalem. That was the second tithe. After what went to the priests, after the tithe that the Levites got, in these years, 1, 2, 4, and 5, the farmers would eat that tithe in Jerusalem. But on the 3rd year and on the 6th year of the cycle, that tithe did not go to the farmers to eat in Jerusalem. That tithe went to the poor. So 1, 2, 4, and 5, we eat that second tithe. 3 and 6, we give it away. And that was why it was very important to know what is a year. When does the year end? When does it begin? Because based on the year, I know, does 10th of this crop go to me, to my family, to feed myself and my family and my servants in Jerusalem? Or is this a tithe I give away? And that's why they had to mark for each product of the earth, for whatever produce there was, what is that year? In other words, if every year they did the same thing, it doesn't make a difference when the year starts or ends. If every year starts with our Rosh Hashanah 4.5 months ago, it doesn't make a difference if it's this year or last year. We just do the same thing with it. But since some years you eat it and some years you give it to the poor, we need to know very clearly the demarcation of the year. And that is why it is so important for us to know the new year of produce. Now, as I said, today is not the new year of all produce. It's not the new year of all agriculture. Grains, vegetables, legumes, they have the same new year that we have. They also have the 1st of Tishrei 4.5 months ago. Only trees, of course, we're here talking about fruit-bearing trees specifically, because we're focused on the produce, but trees in general, today, the 15th of Shvat, is their new year, and we're explaining why it's today and not 4.5 months ago, because the rains in Israel started 4 months ago, and they need 4 months of rain, 4 months of the earth being saturated by rain in order for the trees to blossom and produce fruit. Now you know, and as I'm saying, many people don't, why we need to know that when is the new year of trees and why it's specifically now and not like everyone else's new year. Actually, in the Talmud, it recounts 4 new years, but we're not going to discuss. So now we know the practicality. We all had a fruit. We know why it's today and not 4.5 months ago. We know why we need to know. What does that have to do with us? Spiritually speaking, in our own relationship to God and to ourselves and to our growth and development, why are we focusing on trees? I mean, it's nice to celebrate by enjoying fruit. It's an excuse to party. We're always looking for another reason to party. And we could have massive fruit parties, as people definitely do. But why is it relevant to us? So it's relevant to us because there's a verse, Adam Eitz Hasadeh. Because man, this is a verse in Deuteronomy, man is like the tree of the field. So now is the day of rejuvenation of the trees. They're celebrating their new year. It's their birthday. Well, man is like a tree. We are comparable to the trees. And as such, today is a day for us also in the winter to say, no, I sense the spring. It's the new year of the trees. I'm going to enjoy a delicious fruit, and I'm going to think about my own growth. So some people joined as I was talking. If you did the ticket, the fare to enter class today is to enjoy a fruit. Ideally, if you have dates or figs or pomegranates or grapes or olives. If you don't, any fruit is a fruit. So please make sure if you join later, you enjoy a fruit now, make the blessing on it, borei pri ha'etz, and enjoy your fruit. If you join me with beginning, continue munching. You're on silent. So you could enjoy your fruits and really feel that you are fulfilling what this class is about in the most practical way. In the most practical way, what this class is about is enjoying fruits today. Obviously, it's very easy to make connections between ourselves and trees. Also have to cultivate strong roots. Our overarching strong roots are our faith and our commitment to God. And then we produce fruits. There's many ways of understanding the concept of roots, and there's many ways of understanding the concepts of fruits, and I will explain a few. But basically, the most basic one, the most foundational one, my roots of my commitment, of my faith in God, produces the fruits, my service, my Torah, and my commandments, and my good deeds. And on another level, we're nurtured by very deep roots. We go all the way back to Abraham and Sarah. And we're like the trees reaching up to the heavens. We're firm on the ground, and we extend so far. And again, we produce fruits. We produce the good deeds that benefit the world. That's the basic. But now if we want to get more case specific, how else can we understand this? So let's discuss that. But before that, I do want to mention one other custom people have today. So the basic point is eat from the species of Israel: olives, dates, grapes, figs, and pomegranates. In general, eat fruits. And many people have the custom to eat carob, which we call buxer. So if you happen to have carob buxer in your house, wow, you really hit the jackpot. And it's very interesting because it's not written in law to do this, but this is a Jewish custom that majority of Jews follow. Very significant. Now, why do we understand why we eat the grapes and the dates and the figs and the olives and the pomegranates, but why carob? It's not one of the species of Israel. Why carob? So many different answers are given. I'm going to give you two in case you ever wondered about it, in case someone ever discusses with you that they eat carob but have no clue why, and you could be that knowledgeable Jew that knows all the answers to all the questions. The reason is that the Talmud explains that it takes 70 years for a carob tree to mature and bear fruit. So eating that carob on the 15th of Shvat highlights a lesson that we absorb from the carob tree: the importance in patiently investing in the future, even when it's a long, arduous process and you don't see any immediate gains. Now, in general, that's a lesson we look at in terms of trees in general. Specifically, the carob tree, with that long, 70-year growth period, really highlights this message. We're not going to harvest the fruits, maybe, but the generations to come will. And that's a very strong Jewish value that we invest, we labor, and we know now or in the future, or even in a more distant future, our descendants will reap the benefits. In our world, people often think of that in a financial way, but we're looking at it in terms of a spiritual value. Another reason given why we eat carob is because they were the food of a very great Tana. A Tana is a sage of the Mishnah. He lived in Israel. His name was Reb Chanina, the son of Dosa, Reb Chanina ben Dosa. Reb Chanina ben Dosa survived every week on a single kav of carobs. I don't know how much that was, but I know it was not a lot. And the Talmud describes Rav Chanina ben Dosa as one who was accustomed to miracles. I actually just read on the Shabbos a whole book about Rav Chanina ben Dosa to my son Beryl. I don't know if he was as inspired as I was, but it's a beautiful book that really highlights all the miracles of Rav Chanina ben Dosa. So when we eat the carobs on the 15th of Shvat, what we're evoking is the memory of Rav Chanina ben Dosa. And we're really saying to God, we hope we should also be the recipient of God's kindness, compassion, and miracles. So if you have carobs, you could keep it in mind. And if you don't have carobs, you can make a mental note for next year: the 70-year growth and the miracle. There are other fruits as well that different people have different customs to eat. It says the master Kabbalist, the Arizal, the second greatest Kabbalist of all times, would eat 15 different types of fruits on this day. Not meaning he was grabbing from his storehouse the apples and the oranges and the grapefruits and the pears. No, very specific, very nuanced. Each fruit had its meaning. Each fruit had its Kabbalistic intent. And he made, as they would call it, a seder. Like we all have on Passover, people have a seder of fruit on the 15th of Shvat. And just as on Passover there are 15 steps to the seder, he had 15 fruit. Carob. Someone asked me, a carob. In English, they call it carob. C-A-R-O-B. We call it buxer. These are carobs. This is what it's like. It has little seeds that you do not eat, that are not edible. And this dried part is edible, but as I'm saying, you want to get them a little bit, I mean, soft is a relative term. They're a hard item, but there's really hard and there's more chewy. So you want the chewy ones because those are good and the really hard ones are going to break your teeth.
And the same prayer you say
yes, it's the same blessing. Now you would not, now that's actually an interesting point I'm going to raise. This is obviously a new fruit, especially because I'm explaining to you what it is. But you do not make the blessing of a new fruit on it because it's dry. Whenever you're eating a dried fruit, you do not make that blessing, the Shehechiyanu blessing, on a new fruit. So if these dates you haven't eaten for a whole season, these are dry. There are fresh dates you can get, but these dates are dry. No shechianu. But if the pomegranate was a new fruit for you, you would make the shechianu because it's fresh. Therefore, even if you've never had carob your whole life, you do not make the shechianu because it's dry. And I've never seen it not dried in Chicago. So we will now speak about some of the application and is compared to the fruit tree. This is Fruits Day, Trees Day, which means this is our day to reflect on ourselves as a tree, and to see what we can glean, how we can understand ourselves as trees. I'm just going to bring a short vignette of Lubavitcher Rebbe, where he speaks of raising children. And he says, you know, when you raise a child needs a lot of nurturance. Like a plant, you water, you pull out the weeds, it has to have good soil, fertilize, and then a beautiful plant grows. He says, but some children seem very, very challenging. You're doing all this stuff and it's not enough, and they need more care, and they need more care, and they need more care. You know, they're pulling out your inside. Bob Rebbe says, those children aren't plants. Those children are trees. So when we're going through a child that really takes us here and there and everywhere, and we're nurturing and nurturing and nurturing, no, you're nurturing a tree. And God willing, we should see all the trees give good fruit. And today we look at every one of ourselves as that tree. And as a tree, what can we learn? What can we think about a tree that so obviously reflects ourselves? And what can we learn in terms of our own growth? I'm going to share with you a famous vignette from the Talmud. It's from the Talmud Tainus, speaking about a man-tree relationship. This is a famous story in the Talmud. There was a man traveling in the desert. He was so drained, so weary, so hungry, so thirsty. The sun is beating down on him. We can figure out all the details. He's walking and walking and walking. And finally, he sees a tree, not just a tree, a beautiful tree with beautiful fruits, with beautiful shade, with a spring of water underneath, which obviously was how this beautiful, lush tree is growing in the desert. It's like, oh, wow, my salvation. And he eats from the fruit. He drinks from the spring. He sits under the shade, protected from the sun. Ah, this was so good, so rejuvenating. And then when he was going to leave and continue on his journey, he said, tree, tree, how can I bless you? Can I bless you to have beautiful fruits? You already have beautiful fruits. Can I bless you to have beautiful shade? You already have beautiful shade. Can I bless you to have water always to nurture you? You have a spring of water right by your root. How can I bless you? My blessing is that may God will that all trees planted from your seeds be just like you. A beautiful, beautiful message from the Talmud. A true story. This is not a parable. This is a true story that happened with a sage, but a strong lesson on ourselves and our values. And I look at it like, I mean, of course, you can take various insights from this, but I look at it like the ultimate priority, the ultimate blessing is children following in your path. Fruits just like you. Any tips? Because I think that's very relevant for everyone here in the class, myself, of course, very obviously included. Any tips how you try that your children or your grandchildren go in the right path? For some of you at different ages and stages in your life, you might not be able now to be directly influencing your children, but you can definitely work on your grandchildren. So, you know, that's a whole different generation. That's a whole different relationship.
How?
How? Well, anybody have any ideas how they do this? That's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I was going to say with your example.
But that's not working on them, it's just living your life.
I think eventually it will work.
God willing. Is anything, I don't know how my grandchildren are very respectful, but neither of them are fully observant.
But I think, Rachel, what you don't know is what will be. I do agree with Menucha. I do agree with Menucha's point that our personal example is the loudest, strongest lesson, a personal, consistent example. And very often, I'll share with you something Lubavitcher Rebbe once said. It's not exactly this idea, but it sort of is. He was speaking actually, have you heard of Bnei Akiva? Those are like sort of a Zionist youth group movement, very Zionistic oriented. There was a youth leader, I believe he was in Mexico, like all religious groups, wanting to inspire Jews and connect them to God and connect them to God and have them ultimately, very much part of their ideologies, go to Israel. And they would have these youth groups in Mexico, and they were getting sort of discouraged because they'd worked so hard, they put so much manpower and resources and finances, and then like the kids just like drifted in, drifted out, didn't really seem to be making any major changes in their life. And at some point, this group, meaning this youth leader, and that he was sort of in charge of the group, and then other youth leaders under him, they traveled to New York and they had a private audience with the Lubavitcher. And in this is talking about like in the 50s. And in this private audience, this man who went on to move to Israel, and he became actually the head of the Bar Ilan University. If any of you have heard of University of Bar Ilan, very, very, very significant, notable scholar in Israel. But he relates this. So you could Google it, see it on a gem video today. He says that he asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe this question, like, it just feels so discouraging. You try with the kids, they stop showing up. Even if they do show up, you don't see any difference. You don't see them doing anything different because of it. And he said the Rebbe responded. He said, first of all, it's very interesting to him because the way the Rebbe responded, he actually felt like the Rebbe knew all the details of how this Bnei Akiva youth movement works. Like, again, it's not a Hasidic group. It's not a Chabad group. Like, how does the Rebbe know exactly how they run their organization? But the way the Rebbe was saying it, like you could see, the Rebbe knew everything. The Rebbe said, so here you are, it's Shabbos afternoon, and you're having a youth group. And the Rebbe described how they would have the youth group, which was exactly how they had the youth group. A boy walks in from the streets. You've never seen him before. And you're like, ooh, you wanna connect to another Jewish boy. But you can't stop your whole, show. You can't stop the speech. So you think, after I finish talking, I'm gonna go over and introduce myself and find out his name. The boy sits there for a few minutes, another failure. You never got his name. He never walked in again. You never got his name. He never got your name. He obviously wasn't very interested. But the Rebbe says, but what were you saying during those few minutes when he was there? You were talking about the Jewish people. You were talking about the eternal nature of the Jewish people. You were talking about how all Jews are descendants of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, how we have an eternal heritage, how we're part of an eternal people, an eternal land of Israel. A few minutes, a child, and he walked out. And he continued living his life, and he was not living a religious life, and he goes on to university. And he meets a nice girl, not Jewish, of course, and they want to get married, okay? And her family agrees, just on condition he gets married in the church. As of course, in these countries, they're very Catholic and they have to get married in the church. It's fine, Religion is irrelevant to him, he'll get married in a church. And as he's going to the church, the Rebbe said, suddenly he has a memory. And he doesn't know where he has this memory from. He doesn't remember who told it to him. He doesn't remember when he heard it. But suddenly in his mind, it's resonating. I'm part of an eternal people. I'm a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I belong to an eternal people with an eternal land. I can't do this. And he breaks it off. You will never know, the Rebbe said to this group of people. You will never know, but that's your impact. And the man who was the president and the rector of Bar Ilan University, he said this vision has stayed with him his whole life. And I think it has to be our vision as well. We have to cling very tightly to that vision of what the Rebbe is saying. You never know what they're going to hear, what's going to stick, what's sticking, even though they don't think it's sticking and they don't think anything's sticking. You never know what message is going to come up to them later that you said to them. They don't even remember it came from you. They don't remember where they heard it. They don't remember the context, but truth penetrates. We're told that if it's true and comes from your heart, it penetrates the other person. So I 100% agree with Menucha, personal example. I would also say sharing, talking about your relationship with God, talking about why you have this relationship with God, talking about why you made the choices you made, why you live the life you live, why you don't feel you're losing out and you don't view it as a sacrifice, but as something that fills you with such joy. Again, you never know. You never know who's hearing. You never know when they're hearing. And also, I think having an opportunity, if you do have grandchildren and you can bring them to your house, giving them Jewish customs, giving them kosher food, giving them a Shabbos experience. You never know what is going to make the difference. Being that example, talking, giving them a taste of Judaism. We're told, King David said, Ta'amu uru'u ki tov havaya, which means taste and see that God is good. Taste and see that God is good. So every time as you experience another Shabbos, another Passover, another piece of Judaism, another concept, another thought, taste and see God is good. It's supposed to taste good. It's not supposed to taste oppressive. It's not supposed to taste bad. It's supposed to taste good. Another thought, we're told that a small seed becomes a strong tree through 5 elements. You got to put it in the earth. If your seed is sitting on a dining room table, it's not going to become a plant or a tree. The seed has to decompose, but it also needs water and sunlight and God's help. And then in the right soil, decomposed with the water, with the sunlight, God can help, and the seed becomes a beautiful tree. Man is compared to the tree, and we also have this infinite potential to grow, to become this tall, beautiful, fruit-bearing tree, positively impact and benefit the world around us with our fruits. Those 5 criteria we could look at and say, how do they apply to us? Again, this is just one way of looking at it. There are many, but it's definitely what we're supposed to be thinking about today. Earth, you need that good soil or nothing's going to happen. It's not going to produce anything on your table. Earth symbolizes humility, because we're talking here about we want to grow, we want to become this beautiful fruit-bearing tree, tall and strong and beautiful with lush fruit. So that desire to succeed and to grow without humility could be very destructive. So we sort of need to plant the seeds of ambition in the soil of humility. So that's the earth, like that which is stepped on, that's just which is low. That's the humbleness we need, that the growth is godly, that it's healthy. The seed has to decompose. If it doesn't rot, nothing's going to happen. And the decomposing seed, metaphorically, is for ourselves to grow. We also need to let go of things. We need to let go of our preconceived notions, our damaging attitudes. To create real change, we have to drop a lot of the old stuff that's trapping us. An old mindset, an old habit. You can't move forward if you're stuck in the same patterns and you won't let them go. If you're trying to heal a situation and you just keep trying to do the same thing again, well, it didn't work the last 10 times. Why in the world would it work now? But it's hard because that's how we view the situation, and that's how we view healing the situation. So sometimes if we see it's not working, to grow, to change, we have to say, wait, let me drop how I always look at this, because clearly that's not helping. Let me try to look at it a different way. And then maybe I can do something that's actually going to be productive. Water. Water is always a symbol for Torah. Torah gives us direction. Torah gives us a value system to guide our journey. With Torah, we can grow. So we have the earth, humility. I'm reviewing it because I want you to remember it, and I'm going to test you on it afterwards. No. We have the earth, the humility. We have the decomposing, consciously stopping our preconceived notions and opening ourselves up to something new and different. We have the water, the Torah. And we need the sunlight. The sunlight is warmth, is hope, is positivity, is joy. You need positivity to grow. You can only take the next step if you believe you can. And we need God's help. So we turn to God, we pray, we trust. We're going to do our part. We're working on our humbleness. We're working on our joy factor. We're studying the Torah, and we need God's help. And then with all of those factors, we should see change. We should see growth. I'm going to review them because I'm curious which one you would say you believe is the most significant. We spoke about the earth. I know I did this a little quickly because we're a little late and I had a few other things I wanted to do. We'll see how much time we have. We spoke about the earth, humility, the decomposing, breaking away from how you have looked at this in the past and have solved it in the past because you want something new. The water, Torah, is your guide. The sun, the positivity, the energy of happy, joy, going to move forward with confidence, and of course the God factor, turning to God, praying to God, trusting in God. When you're working, when you're trying to grow, when you're trying to change, when you're trying to do something different, which of these 5 do you think you really rely on the most? Or do you need, and maybe you didn't realize before, and now we're opening your eyes to maybe a new way of looking at things?
God's help.
God's help. Everything else falls before God's help. And what do you do to bring in God's help, Manucha?
Praying, asking God to help. Praying every day, reading Psalms, and talking to God.
And every good thing you do. Every I know for myself, when I want God's help, and I always want God's help, I'm always adding. I pray, I say prayer, Psalms, charity, trust. Those are like the big four, right? Prayer, Psalms, charity, trust. But then every time I want something else from God, I always add another commandment, an addition of the commandment, a beautification of the commandment, a better way to do the commandment, doing it more. Because I want something from God. I know this is a relationship, and I'm initiating his ability to give by my extending myself. Anyone else? I mean, I agree with Menucha, of course. I'm sure we all agree that the most significant thing is God's help. Putting that beyond as a most overarching thing, God's help. From the other four, anyone has something that they feel more strongly is definitely what they need to work on or do see helps them the most? Humility, the leaving your preconceptions, the Torah, the positivity.
I feel like all of them are very important, but maybe sunshine, happiness is something to be more like positive.
It's true, because often we forget that. Like we're all revved up and we're going to go and we're going to move, and we forget that when we move with joy, it just works better. Lubavitcher actually speaks about this idea. Joy creates success. The more joy we have, the more we have success, the more it shines on us. So that joy definitely links to our success. And as we're working on ourselves, sometimes that's exactly the time we forget to be joyous and positive, because we're like focused and maybe we're a little stressed because we need to work on ourselves or something going on in our life that's very significant, and that's why we're working on ourselves. So that could become a little heavy, a little intense, a little stressed, and we need the joy. Absolutely. The joy really makes it happen. Well, I'm going to try to do two more things. I've got 5 minutes left. We will see. And if not, that's fine. Whatever we do is exactly what we're supposed to do. For seeds to grow, they have to plant, and they have to have roots. For ourselves as those trees, it's very helpful to look at our roots. No one came from nothing. And we can really understand ourselves better and learn from the generations that preceded us, from our roots. And when your roots are strong, you can grow strong. You can grow tall. You can grow confident. You want to know who your ancestors were to know who you are. When you have the roots, you can grow. And we, as the roots, as we're saying, the next generation, we want to grow and be those roots and be that strong foundation for those that come after us. And the stronger the roots, this helps and accelerates our growth. So again, this is another way of looking at man as a tree analogy and thinking, what does this have to do with me as a human being? What am I supposed to do for myself? And this is really, really focusing again, both past and future, meaning your roots and how you become the roots for the next generation. But has anyone experienced this or feels they move forward from the strength of the past? Again, not all of you know the roots and don't know where you come from. And I mean, very often, even when people know their grandparents, they don't really know their grandparents. Grandparents are old people. You know, they don't know what they were like. They don't know what they went through. But did any of you have that feeling that you know, or you don't even know, but it's more like an intuition, a sense, I come from strong stock. I'm moving from the strength of my past. I know for myself, I can say personally, both of my grandmothers were very strong women, very different, but in very different ways. They were both very, very strong. I think that's sort of like imprinted on me, that sense of specifically a woman, a strong woman that really is the doer, the shaker, the mover, the matriarch. Like I knew my grandmothers were very strong women. And that sort of imprinted on me a sense of where I come from, a lot of strength, because I knew they were both very, very strong. Anyone has experienced something like that, either consciously because you know, or just a sense of your past as the roots for your future? If you don't have it in your past, think of it moving forward, right? Okay. Someone? Rivka?
When I was a little girl growing up in Kishinev, I remember from early childhood, my dad would say to me something like, you're a Jewish girl, you should, something like, this is not suitable for a Jewish girl, or you can do better, you're a Jewish girl. So that really was from my early childhood that I knew that I'm representative of Jewish people. and I should do better, and I should, you know what I mean? I was growing up in a country where we were trying to even hide when we're Jewish, that we're Jewish. But that my dad, with so subtle things, I was proud that I'm Jewish, and I knew that I have to do better. And
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is so special that he gave you that. There's a term for that in Hebrew. We call it, I mean, it's a Hebrew term. We say vinitlinu, which is the sense of exactly what you're saying. Just that special sense of, I'm a Jew. I'm different. I'm special. I have a special responsibility. I have special challenges. I have special jobs I need to do. And I can't just be like everyone else. I'm special. I'm a Jew. And that's really special that your father in communist Russia managed to give you that sense. Very impressive of your father. I'm very impressed with your father that he was able to do that he dared do that he wasn't scared that he was going to get in trouble, that something would happen because he was telling you this.
I would never speak it in public or among my non-Jewish friends. We always knew what we were not supposed to speak outside the home.
He wasn't worried because he knew you had that sense of discretion.
Oh, absolutely.
Anyone else have such memories? Like that they got that message from the home that they're Jewish and like their parents trusted that they would keep it in the home and therefore they were able to tell them?
I don't know if it's an appropriate example, but it's very similar to what Rivka said. I was in elementary school yet, and my mom asked me, who of these guys you like better? And I said the name, and she said, he's not Jewish, he's not for you. I remember these words all my life.
Yeah, and
that's very surprising that he was. That's good.
And to add to what just Rochel said, my father, since I was very little, he would say, I hope people understand. You are a Jewish girl, and you have to have husband as a Jewish boy. That was instilled into me since I don't know. As I remember myself, and then my brother, much older than I, so his daughter was 5 years younger than I, so my niece, and we were raised together. So my father, who is a grandfather to my niece, he would say the same thing to her. So it was like telling me, his daughter, and telling his granddaughter. And that's what happened, both of us.
That's amazing. I think that's amazing. And I mean, the truth is there are people today that are scared to give that message to their children in America because how can we say that? And they won't accept it. And I actually always say that it's a very important message to say to children and grandchildren. Each person has to find the right expression. Your mother said it one way, your father said it another way. But to just instill that value of, yeah, you're a Jew and you need to marry a Jew and continue the Jewish line, continue Jewish people. And it's very special. I'm very impressed that in communist Russia, it would be such a crime, I would think, to tell that to children, and children could blabble it on the playground, that your parents believed in it enough, and it was such a unequivocal point in their existence that they gave you that message anyway. I think that's amazing. I really, really do. Very, very impressed. And definitely going back to what we want to give to our children and grandchildren, that is definitely a message you want to give. Very strong message, very important message. As consistently as you can. Obviously, there's a lot more to say, and obviously we don't have time to say more. So I hope everyone gained some appreciation of this very special day, a knowledge of why it's today, a knowledge of why we need to know the New Year fruits, eating the fruits, and some level from everything I shared. And of course, there's so much more to say, but something that you can use for your own growth and journey. Because as the New Year of the fruits, of the trees, as man is compared to a tree, for us in the middle of the winter, February, there's a spring that's coming. There's a growth that's possible, and we want to grab it, do something with it, and move forward.